Oh, hey everyone. Sorry, I'm just watching this Epstein jail footage. All 11 hours. I'm sorry, 10 hours and 59 minutes. No, sorry, 10 hours and 57 minutes. It's fascinating. It's like those paranormal activity films. I think I saw a trash can scoot at hour 7. Tomorrow I'm gonna call the jail and tell them it might be haunted. I'm sure they're taking calls. Anyway, here's some news. The Jeffrey Epstein case has been solved. It turns out nothing happened. He killed himself. No connection to anything or anyone. No victims, no crimes. Everyone, move on. Stop looking into it. It's done. 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 But, there's a lesson here. Sometimes a wealthy child sex trafficker with connections to powerful and high-profile individuals, including multiple presidents of the United States, is just a wealthy child sex trafficker with connections to powerful and high-profile individuals, including multiple presidents of the United States. The end. Now let's talk about this jail ghost.
How are you, sir?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
We should probably talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, okay, fine. The title says we're gonna talk about Epstein some more, so I guess we'll talk about Epstein some more. Can't argue with the title. That's just nature, man. Like ghosts. And to start, we're just gonna go over the facts. People love facts, right? And to preface this, I wanna note that multiple things can be true. What I mean is that you can accept reality and still believe that there's something suspicious going on. So, for example, concerning his suicide and or murder, there's a lot of conspiracy fodder around it that's pretty bogus. For example, within this example, a lot of people were saying that the broken hyoid bone in Epstein's neck meant that it had to be a homicide. This included pathologist Michael Baden, who was brought in by Epstein's family to watch the autopsy.
So if you're there watching them perform this autopsy, you notice these 3 broken bones, and you believe it would be homicide. So that would mean another person would have gone into his cell, strangled him. Did he have any signs of trying to fight back?
Well, they took fingernail clippings to see if there's anybody else's DNA on it, and that hasn't been released.
So we'd actually later learn that, according to the medical examiner, there was nothing found under his fingernails or any sign of a struggle. As for the broken bones, well, that's actually common for suicides by older people. Those bones get brittle and take very little force to break like that. Our bodies are, as you know, terrible meat computers that degrade with time. And that Michael Baden guy, well, he's sort of a media ham. He goes all the way back to the O.J. Simpson trial and has built an entire career around butting into famous cases to boost his true crime TV career. We're gonna see a lot of that with the Epstein stuff, because to be frank, most of the evidence here, not the vibes, but the evidence, points to suicide. Mind you, that doesn't mean there weren't people who stood to gain from Epstein's death. But what's often funny about conspiracies is that they can be used to cover up obvious but more boring injustices. Like if you're wondering how this man could have been allowed to kill himself, like how the prison didn't notice, well, have you watched our other episodes on prisons? Much like all prisons in America, the one that housed Jeffrey Epstein was understaffed and poorly managed. In a way, even if he killed himself, you could still say he was killed, if only because the prison gave him more than enough opportunities to do so, even after he'd attempted suicide once before. I don't know, maybe you still think they were told to look the other way or ignore it when he hoarded extra sheets to hang himself. Maybe I'm suspicious of that too, but we're not getting into that because we're just going over the facts. Maybe you're a bit curious about that missing video footage, or how the metadata showed that it was modified. I certainly was, but currently the headlines have been a bit more scandalous than the actual facts, and ultimately, you can believe either story. Perhaps they took the raw footage and simply used Adobe Premiere to compile and export it, and maybe change the file type. Maybe it's true that the missing minute is due to a system reset, and the extra couple of missing minutes are bonus missing minutes. Even Wired notes that the missing extra minutes might be due to a footage overlap. Could be nothing, or they cut something out of the footage. The best conspiracies are the ones with this much ambiguity, and the media certainly loves sensationalizing this. Here's a hard-hitting piece about a man who once stayed in the same cell that Epstein stayed in. I'm sure he'll get to the bottom of this.
I've said this from day one. I do not believe it was suicide. I can't talk about what happened to him, but I don't believe it was a suicide because you just couldn't physically do it. It would be almost impossible to do it.
Wait, does he have YouTube subscriber plaques behind him? Yeah, that guy has a YouTube channel where he talks about being in the mob and is an actor who also appears in true crime docs as part of his career. Nothing against him, because I'm pretty sure he could kill me, but he's yet another media ham. Ultimately, I'm not going to convince you either way. Or myself, really. I mean, dang, do we even know that's the footage outside his cell? Here's a picture of his cell from 2019. I don't know. If someone powerful wanted to kill him, I'm guessing they could have. If someone powerful wanted him to be dead, I'm guessing they could have just made it easier for him to do the job himself. But I also personally don't think the circumstances around his death matter all that much. It would certainly be more cinematic if he was assassinated, like something from the hit film The Firm. I'm not saying that ironically. The Firm was the #1 movie in America for 3 weeks in 1993. We used to be a better country. Anyway, it would also be easier if he did have an actual list somewhere. Something we could dramatically reveal, like when Geraldo opened Al Capone's vault and totally found all that stuff inside. But I don't think everything needs to hinge on those two ideas. In fact, the entire suicide v. murder debate feels like a distraction from the larger story, which is that Jeffrey Epstein was definitely a sex trafficker with powerful friends, many of whom you can see with entries and pages of contact information in his little black book that we do have and have had for years, many of whom were probably also his clients. And it's very weird that we haven't arrested anyone for this. That is odd, or rather, I guess it's not odd at all. I mean, some of the people being implicated here include former President Bill Clinton, who is named in the Epstein documents over 100 times. This includes victim testimony claiming that Epstein said that Clinton, quote, likes them young, and that she had dinner on Epstein's island with Clinton. And although I think it's probably important to understand that you don't have to have gone to the island or even be on his plane to be potentially implicated in this, but Clinton would go to that island a couple of times, at least according to another witness. His name is also on the flight logs of Epstein's jet, but not specifically for Epstein's island. Even if there isn't any smoking gun here, my betting money is on Bill Clinton being a pedophile and a rapist, allegedly. Just what I think. This is all going to be just what I personally think, but I mean, here's a picture of him getting a massage from one of Epstein's victims. Seems bad. Anyway, God, who else has been named? Speaking of presidents, there's Prince Andrew. Prince is kind of like a president, a royal president. Much like Clinton, there's a picture of him getting all touchy with one of the victims. There are multiple allegations from multiple witnesses naming his involvement. He ended up settling in court against one of the alleged victims, which seems pretty sketchy. This isn't Britland or even Ingmerica, so I'm not going to spend too much time on him, but he probably has some of the most damning evidence against him. So, I don't know. Who else? Alan Dershowitz. You might know him from his recent op-ed where he tried to assure everyone that there's nothing to see with the Epstein stuff. Thanks, Alan.
Is the government hiding a client list or anything that the Trump administration could release tonight?
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women.
Oh yeah, good. Chris Cuomo and Alan Dershowitz are on the case. Gonna root out those creeps, those two. Yeah, Alan was named in a deposition for having raped one of the victims 6 fucking times. Maybe he should, at the very least, shut his gross mouth. He's admitted to flying on Epstein's jet a bunch. At one point, he blamed the allegations on radical feminists who need to condemn Hamas. He's a mess, is my point. If he were a state, he'd be Massachusetts. And his main export is sketchiness. Another op-ed of note written by him was in the 90s, and it was literally called, quote, statutory rape is an outdated concept. But, you know, a lot of bad opinions in the 90s. Maybe he's evolved since.
About 20 years ago, I wrote an article in the Los Angeles Times in which I said the age of consent for sex is way too high. Why shouldn't a 17-and-a-half-year-old girl be able to consent to having loving, consensual, wonderful sex with an 18-year-old boy?
Alan! What are you doing? Oh! Stop talking! It seems kind of sus, okay? It's just a squish sus. Anyway, G's and crackers. Who else? Who the frig else? I said Clinton, Prince Andrew, Dershowitz, obviously, just now. Other people named in the files are Michael Jackson, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. We covered Clinton already. Prince Andrew. That's it.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
Oh, right. I remember now. Sorry. That clip just jogged my memory, you see. I guess I've been told people are saying that perhaps, also maybe, Donald Trump might be linked to Epstein too. I know. It's kind of a conspiracy theory, but if you just follow me, I think I can explain the connection, okay? So hold on, here we go. All right, we're gonna do, okay, so we got that. Just, yeah, okay. Need another color. Okay, so we have Trump over here, and Epstein's over here, right? And so Jeffrey Epstein was close friends with Donald Trump. So I guess it's not that complicated.
The video shows them partying like pals. President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago in a room full of cheerleaders.
Seems kinda... To quote Trump in 2002, quote, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life." End quote. That's a quote from Trump about Epstein. A terrific guy, liking young women. He and Epstein also organized something called a Calendar Girl competition at Mar-a-Lago in the 90s. They brought in 28 women to compete, only to reveal that the only people in the audience were Trump and Epstein. That evening would result in a lawsuit where Trump was accused of pulling a woman into his daughter's bedroom and forcing himself on her. Anyway, just two terrific guys getting into romps. A real Harold and Kumar, you know? There's apparently 100 hours of Epstein talking about his friendship with Donald Trump. Maybe in it, he mentioned Maria Farmer, a woman who alerted the FBI with concerns of Trump and Epstein twice in 1996 and 2006. She describes an encounter where Trump was hovering over her and leering at her when Epstein came in and said, "No, she's not for you." They go in the other room and she hears Trump say that he thought she was 16 years old. But that's just a salacious rumor reported to the FBI twice. Of course, we also just saw the video of them scoping chicks together at their filmed Eyes Wide Shut party. I feel like in a different, better reality, that video alone would end a political career on the spot, as would audio of Trump admitting to grabbing women's genitals, or all the times he's been a weird creep to his own daughter, like when he said when she was 25 years old that if she wasn't his daughter, he'd be dating her. Also, that audio of him bragging about walking into beauty pageant dressing rooms.
They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
That dressing room thing happened with girls as young as 15. And who can forget the time when, as a 46-year-old man, out loud and on camera, he told a small child that he'd be dating her in 10 years.
Thursday night, you're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
You can hear him say, I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
In public, on camera. Oh, and there was that time he was found legally liable for sexual abuse. In terms of Epstein, well, Trump flew on his plane at least 7 times. Probably more, considering that they were such good pals. He was at Trump's wedding, but to be fair and balanced, Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. But yeah, here's Trump in the logs. His name comes up 8 times in 2 depositions that we know of. Stories about Trump having sex with young women through Epstein. Here's a court document from a lawsuit claiming that Trump and Epstein both raped a girl when she was 13. That lawsuit was later withdrawn, but the allegations were not. Seems like a pattern here, with multiple people, unrelated to each other, accusing Trump of abuse and rape throughout his life. A history of abusing women and verbally sexualizing young girls. Here he is in Epstein's black book of contacts. And if you're wondering why his name is circled, well, here's journalist Nick Bryant explaining that.
The people that are circled, okay, how the black book came to exist was Alfredo Rodriguez stole all of Epstein's numbers, and which is the black book.
Who was Alfredo Rodriguez?
He was Epstein's house manager.
Okay.
I got the black book from some people who got it from the FBI.
Holy shit.
But Rodriguez said that the people that were circled were in cahoots with Epstein on the, as far as the child abuse.
So the FBI are the ones that did the circles?
No.
Epstein was.
Rodriguez.
Oh, Rodriguez.
Rodriguez did the circles, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Clinton's name, or rather Clinton's assistant's name, isn't circled. Though, as Bryant points out, Epstein had 25 contact numbers for Clinton. And mind you, this is all speculation with the circling stuff. But one could speculate that, while people like Bill Clinton might have been and almost definitely were clients, that kind of implies that Donald Trump could have been something else. He could have been perhaps working behind the counter, so to speak. Hey, remember how at least one of Epstein's victims was specifically recruited at Mar-a-Lago? If you believe the Epstein story at all, you also have to accept that. It's a fact. Underage girls at Trump's home were recruited by a sex trafficker who was close friends with him. Remember when Trump ran a model management company that allegedly brought in women to work illegally from other countries? I don't know, folks. I guess there's no direct evidence in all of this, but folks, come on. The crowd that's meticulously decoding emails about pizza to the point they go to a DC pizza place with a gun just can't quite wrap their minds around the fact that Jeffrey Epstein ran an underage sex trafficking ring that catered to rich and famous people and was also close friends with Donald Trump, a United States president with an extensive history of bragging about grabbing and harassing women and making inappropriate comments to or about young girls, including his daughter. Multiple allegations of rape, one that he was found liable for, and his good pal, the underage sex trafficker, proceeded to die in jail during Trump's first term in office. And now, years later, Trump has been pleading with everyone to just please stop talking about it. There's no other way to put this. Donald Trump is the guiltiest man who ever lived. Just the sweatiest, most obvious rapist and child molester in the history of the world. He deserves an award for this. His first deserved award. I know that life isn't like a movie, but if this were a movie, he'd be played by Gene Hackman. It is positively beyond parody, like straight out of a South Park episode, that Trump could manage to rally this base that's obsessed with hunting for pedophiles when he is clearly the most guilty pedophile ever.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
It is so very much that hot dog meme. We're all trying to find the me who did this. More hot dog meme than anything has ever been before. Many people are saying this. Many people are saying that he's the most hot dog meme a man has ever been. And for most normal, sensible humans, we've just been watching this with amazement, right? For years, MAGA has been saying, "Come on, gang, let's go get the pedophiles," when their guy is clearly at the end of that journey.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Guy, declassified Jeffrey Epstein files? What do you think? And the rest of those, that list.
That last one is extra interesting.
It is extra interesting,
I would
right?
like to see that. I think a lot of Americans would like to see that.
Ah, yes, we would like to see that. Fun fact about that clip, they actually cut it off before he says this part.
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
Oh yeah, a lot of phony stuff in there, he says. My goodness. Hey Fox, I thought it was like illegal to cut stuff out of interviews or something. It's interesting to note how little Trump actually brought up Epstein in the past. Kind of like he knew it was a bad subject for him, despite his people getting so gassed up about it. He knew it helped him, but only to a point. Because he's the most guilty man ever. Did I mention that? And we all watched this play out, and some of us wondered how he would manage to keep the grift up. It's like a cult leader where at some point, he's gonna have to show them some aliens or whip out the Kool-Aid. At some point, Trump was gonna have to put up or shut up. He has spent a decade somehow convincing his base that he's this anti-establishment figure standing up against the elite Democrats who are all the pedophiles and Satanists, while he himself has always been the total embodiment of that thing, this walking guar puppet, a gold bespectacled 80s villain running casinos and hotels, somehow posing as the underdog fighting the good fight. While we were writing this episode, the Wall Street Journal revealed that the Justice Department found a 50th birthday album of Epstein's. It's been reported that it contains personal, raunchy birthday cards from people like Bill Clinton and some former Harvard professors. It also included a letter from Donald Trump, in which he drew a picture of a naked woman and signed it with what I could only describe as like a freestyle poem. The drawing is said to have, quote, small arcs depicting the woman's breasts, which, given the context, makes me think that maybe it's not a drawing of a grown woman. It, of course, doesn't matter, because according to Trump, in response to this story, he's never written a picture in his life. Yes, he said the word written, referring to drawing, and no, he's not correct. Trump has a history of drawing people little pictures. Here are several. He lied about that. Anyway, I guess I'm unfortunately now going to read you that entire poem. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything. Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey. Yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey. As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald. A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. End poem. So yeah, hi, Donald Trump is a pedophile? That was the actual message by Donald Trump, the current president, who's a pedophile, allegedly. Just my opinion. Please don't cancel me like Colbert. The MAGA media mega defensiveness seems to be that it's fake, because if it's real, what else? What else could they say to the obvious pedophile message to the other pedophile? Obviously, Trump's claim that he doesn't write pictures fell apart immediately, and not only because the word he was looking for was draw, but the other claim from people like his fake son, J.D. Vance, who interestingly met with Rupert Murdoch 2 days before this story broke. I wonder what that's about. I wonder if he's like, well, you can publish the story, and then if something happens to Trump, it's okay, I got your back, man, I'll be the president, and it'll be fine. Whatever, I don't know what they talked about, doesn't matter. But their point now is that this is fake, because Trump doesn't talk like that. First of all, this was more than 20 years ago, so we're not even talking about modern day Trump. But also, this wasn't a transcript of things that Donald Trump actually said out loud. It's not a tweet, it's not some rant about windmills from his rallies, it's a secret little pedophile poem play that he wrote to his best friend 20 years ago. It's not supposed to sound like him. Also, the defense is that the President of the United States, who's constantly playing 5D chess, doesn't know the word enigma. I kind of understand this defense, the man's a fucking idiot. But they're not supposed to think that. Also, he's used the word enigma many times. Because that poem, my friends, is the writing of a pedophile. The poem of the guiltiest man who ever existed, which again, we already knew about, we've known forever. And somehow, through some kind of cosmic error, he got away with this deep state grift for years. Even when he became the fucking president of the United States, he was somehow able to maintain this idea that there's a larger shadow government pulling the strings. Corruption and abuse of power is a bipartisan affair. But somehow, he managed to scream, everyone's corrupt and friends with Epstein but me! And people believed him. But now we're seeing, hopefully, maybe, his supporters realize that perhaps it's past time that he exposed the shadow elite. And so after the break, we're gonna look at this moment. We're gonna look at how the world's guiltiest man is handling the increasing calls for the Epstein client list. A list that, if it exists, he himself absolutely would be on. Allegedly. Be right back. If you were born after 1970, and these days, who wasn't? Anyone over 55? Oh. So lots of people, okay. Then it's likely that your first razor was a multi-blade razor. It's been the standard ever since old Ronnie Riggs was shaving his notably prominent unibrow. But multiple razors can be rough on skin and it's wasteful. Back in the old days, nobody cared about skin health or the environment. But in 2025, we do care about skin health, and that's why when I need to shave for this show or a bat mitzvah or something, I use razors from Henson Shaving. These smooth exteriored folks are challenging the status quo of shaving, not through gimmicks like subscriptions or moisturizing strips, but through high quality razors that treat your skin like polished Italian leather. Even 80s villain Ronald the Hedgehog Reagan could get behind that. I love my Henson razors because they're great for my skin and they're made of aluminum with no plastic in the razor or the packaging. You can treat your face nice and care about the environment too, unlike some of all of the presidents. So say get out of here to subscriptions and get in here to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/SMN to pick the razor for you and use code SMN to get a pack of 100 blades free with your razor. That's enough for 2 years of shaving, depending on how often you shave. Just make sure to add it to your cart. That's a free pack of 100 blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/SMN and use code SMN. You thought I was gonna do a jingle, but I didn't. You're welcome, or I'm sorry. That's that.
You know that sinking feeling when you say something you can't take back, and now a certain puppet you work with thinks you like him? Like him? No, that's not something I want to spend my weekend thinking about. So I am here to tell you about a sinking feeling that actually feels good. And that is the experience of sinking down in my new Lisa mattress. From the very first night, I knew I'd made a wise choice, as my Lisa mattress provides me with serious comfort and full body support. You will sink right into one of their beautifully crafted luxury mattresses, and you won't even be worrying about how a certain character, let's call him, I don't know, Snailbow, has been blowing up your DMs ever since you jokingly refer to his neck as hella taut. Ooh. Gross. But when it comes to Lisa mattresses, you don't have to just take my word for it. They have been awarded Best Hybrid Mattress by New York Times' Wirecutter, and they are exclusively featured by West Elm as their go-to mattress partner. So go to lisa.com for 25% off mattresses, plus get an extra $50 off with promo code MORENEWS, exclusive to our audience, as part of their Labor Day early access sale. That is LEESA.com, promo code More News for 25% off mattresses plus an extra $50 off. Yes, it's a good deal. And honestly, these mattresses, they're great. So be sure to enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent ya. Lisa.com, promo code More News. I just need to tell him that I think of him as more like a friend, you know? As like a work puppet friend.
Oh man, it's a hot one! And now that my landlord has taken out the air conditioner because of defunding, I'm down to only having water to make me feel revitalized. Thankfully, my Tushy bidet has turned this sweltering summer season into an oasis of lower body refreshment. It was a cinch to install and leaves me feeling clean in a way that paper could never! My nethers feel just like the ocean under the moon with instant warm water and Tushy's built-in air dryer. The entire bathrooming process is now completely hands-free so that I can dedicate these little babies to more important matters, like Googling all my favorite song lyrics and then scrolling through the ads and getting a bunch of pop-ups and being like, no, lyrics, just do the lyrics. So come on, my muñequita, and keep your swampiest body parts fresh and cool. For a limited time, our audience gets 10% off their first bidet order when you use code SMN at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at HelloTushy.com with promo code SMN. Tushy is my reason for reason, the step in my groove. What a bop that song was. What a bop. Hey, hi, we're back. We were just cracking the mysterious case of Jeffrey Epstein, the wealthy sex trafficker and pedophile with absolutely no clients or accomplices that anyone can find. Certainly not the current president, who happened to be close and personal friends with him, sharing wonderful secrets. We've tracked the previous allegations and connections using our intense powers of looking. And it's time to talk about what's happening now. Specifically, when Attorney General Pam Bondi said this about the Epstein client list only a few months ago.
And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Boy, dude, bruh. What did they think was gonna happen after this point? Were they just hoping that everyone would forget, that some other disaster would come up and distract everyone? I mean, yeah, that's not a bad bet, but it's clear that people did not forget the way they had hoped. Because after Pam Bondi claimed that she had the client list, quote, on my desk, in addition to tens of thousands of videos some poor souls were reviewing, it seems that this list has mysteriously flown out her window. Perhaps a gentle breeze sent it into her shredder, which then blew the shreds into an incinerator. Basically, just months after that claim, the DOJ and FBI have now said that there was no client list, and Epstein did indeed kill himself. After years of Trump's base gassing themselves up about this, they are just asking everyone to move on, please. This has, understandably, caused a large portion of his supporters to revolt. Even Mike Pence is scoring off of him. And I gotta be honest with you, until this moment, I maybe would have believed the DOJ. What I mean is that, of course, Epstein had clients and accomplices, but I would be willing to believe that he didn't keep any physical list of them. I would even believe that he had killed himself, simply because he knew how much shit he was in, and what prison would be like for the world's most famous pedophile. To me, it seemed like Trump had been tolerating the Epstein stuff simply to keep his conspiracy base happy. He appointed these dudes who were specifically gassing everyone up about this. But again, he actually didn't bring it up a lot himself. I wonder why, but he did allude to its importance in relation to the Clintons, and continuously say that he'd release the information. Maybe not all of it. He'd built an elaborate world of deep state pedophiles that he rode like a disgusting wave into a second term. It's the same with the JFK files. MAGA built that up so much, and when they were finally released, they didn't really have some bombshell revelation in them. It's like that Geraldo thing I mentioned before with Al Capone's vault. Except imagine there was nothing in that vault. That would certainly make Geraldo look like the biggest dickhead in the world, right? Thank goodness there was definitely something in that vault, I assume. I've never watched this special. Anyway, my point is that while I certainly wouldn't dismiss the Epstein case as being closed, and do think that Trump probably was definitely involved, I could have, at one point, believed that there was no hard evidence of that. And now, well...
President Trump, would you consider appointing a special counsel to investigate the Jeffrey Epstein investigation?
I have nothing to do with it.
Oh man, okay. He did it all. Like, now I'm wondering if there is a P-tape. It's all back on the table. Maybe he killed Kennedy. Was his father the Zodiac killer? Holy moly. He is guilty of, like, everything. The most guilty man who ever lived in the history of the universe. No one is more guilty than him. But. Let's hear his side of it.
You know, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, we went through years of that with the Russia hoax.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it all then. Fun fact about that clip. That was an answer to the question, did Pam Bondi tell you that your name appears in the Epstein files? And his response to that was, well, the files were made up by Comey and Obama and the Biden administration. So his answer was yes, he was told that he was in the files. In fact, it just came out as we were filming this, like seriously, literally 10 minutes ago, that Trump was indeed told that he was in the files back in May. But also, what is he even trying to mean here? Is he saying that the Epstein client list, which would certainly name Bill Clinton, was made up by Obama, Comey, and Biden? That's the new story. We went from the Epstein files being on Pam Bondi's desk to not existing, to existing, absolutely mentioning Trump, but being fake. So he's very guilty then, right? And now he's just tossing out names he knows his base hates, isn't he? I'm surprised he didn't mention Benghazi yet. He's just throwing glitter in the air and running away. He is so freaking guilty. I mean, I knew he was before. We all knew. But now I think that maybe there's actually evidence of it, or was at some point. And Trump has been going through all the stages of grief over this. You just saw bargaining. But there was also anger when Trump posted several times about how his supporters were all dummies and weaklings and fake fans for ever believing the Epstein stuff. He's literally saying to his supporters that they were stupid for believing the things he told them to believe. There's also denial, tons of that. House Republicans literally blocked legislation that would have released the Epstein files to the public. They are now taking an early recess to completely avoid the issue because they are cowards. Trump has begun to actually call his wormy little pundits and tell them directly to stop talking about it. You know, like the guiltiest man in the world would do.
I think that right now it seems pretty clear we're not going to get more information out of the government. They have closed the case.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend.
Yes, balls in their hands indeed. Dinesh was particularly interesting in that he recognizes that there was clearly something that happened, but still has decided that we should all just move on. The attitude, if you notice, is that these totally punk rock, underdog, anti-elite, anti-big government conservatives are suddenly deciding to trust the government and their precious billionaire about all of this. It's in their balls now. Let's talk about something else, please. Now, to their credit, a lot of MAGA people aren't going along with this. There is a divide, albeit a shrinking one, that a lot of conservatives are struggling to fix. And probably the funniest example of this was on News Nation, which I guess is a cable channel, when Bill O'Reilly desperately tried to yes-and Trump's lie about Biden and Obama being in on it.
The Biden administration had exactly the same thing the Trump administration has on Epstein. Exactly. Right. Because Epstein was convicted during the Biden administration. Not one time did Hakeem Jeffrey call for any exposition of what the Biden Justice Department knew. Not once. So this guy's a top phony, okay? He's a political player. He doesn't care about the truth. He doesn't care about the people.
Hold on. Bill.
This is what
hold on.
he does.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. You said Epstein was convicted during the Biden administration. Epstein committed suicide during the Trump administration.
Yeah, so?
Oh, Bill, what a gift you are. And he just keeps going with this. Like his brain literally just refuses to accept that Biden and Merrick Garland were not involved in Epstein's arrest. And it was in fact the Trump administration that had the access and, plenty of time to screw around with the case.
Bill, I think this is important. Bill, I think this is important. He was arrested in 2019, and he committed suicide in 2019. He died August 10th of 2019. So the Biden administration was not involved in a conviction or a trial of him. They were of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Okay. And that's a good point of clarification. But he was arrested and indicted under Merrick Garland.
No, under Trump.
Who had all of the information.
Epstein was arrested, indicted, and committed suicide under Trump in 2019. Trump was president. Merrick Garland was not the attorney general.
Okay.
Bill! I love you, Bill. Let's get married. They're trying so hard. They want so badly for MAGA to forget about all of this. And so now everyone around Trump is scrambling to protect him and his mess he promised everybody. Trump is now ordering the release of grand jury testimony around the case to give the appearance of transparency. Emphasis on appearance, because a judge has already denied that release due to a binding precedent by the 11th U.S. Circuit of Appeals. Of course, Trump famously does not care what judges say, but also, according to the judge, the government, quote, has effectively conceded that the court's hands are tied. Oh no, but Mr. Trump, you tried so hard. The DOJ is also saying they will meet with Ghislaine Maxwell again, and some Republicans in Congress are asking for her to speak publicly as well. Weird. I wonder why the guy who pardons his supporters and insurrectionists and sycophants, and who, after Maxwell was arrested, wished her well in public twice, would be okay with his longtime friend and best friend's madam having an opportunity to speak again. That's so weird. And yet they still won't release the Epstein files, will they? Trump, along with some of his propagandists, has already started using the term credible files. He's okay with releasing the credible files, you see, the ones not about me, you see. And wouldn't you know it, we're now hearing that the FBI has been instructed to flag any occurrence of Trump's name in them. So I'm guessing they need time to, change them. I mean, do you believe a thing this administration releases now? He's trying to blame it on Biden and Obama and Comey. But what's kind of amazing and depressing is that for a lot of Republicans, this is going to work. It's not the first time we've seen such obvious lies become normalized and forgotten. It kind of reminds me of his tax return stuff. Do you even remember that? The stakes weren't as high as Epstein, but Trump went from constantly promising to release his tax returns all the way to fighting in court to not have his returns released. That is just so obviously guilty behavior. It's like saying, yeah, of course you can check my trunk, officer, and then lighting your car on fire, which works, by the way. Cops cannot legally search your car if it's on fire. Remember that. I don't know, it's just that for years, people love to say that this time Trump's base is finally going to turn on him, that this will be the final straw. But it's really hard to believe that when he's been this way the entire time. Since the very start, he's been so clearly a grifter and a liar. And yet there's still this chunk of people that seems unable to realize that very, very, very obvious thing about him. He's actually bewitched people. It's infuriating and a little frightening. For most sensible people, we see it. He's this sweaty used car salesman type with a bad fake tan and a long history of failure and lies. And not good lies. Every credible scandal involving him has been deflected simply by saying fake news like a toddler or calling it a Democrat hoax. Everything is just one big hoax and conspiracy against him specifically. Stuff that existed decades before he was even running for president. And his base just accepted that lazy bullshit with total faith, either because they like who he angers and hurts, or have completely deluded themselves. Maybe probably both, I don't know. So it really seems like this will just be rolled into the Russia hoax and Comey stuff and all the other flimsy excuses he's given from the start. Here he is on Just the News, which I guess is a cable channel, doing just that.
I think they could look at all of it. It's all the same scam. They could look at this Jeffrey Epstein hoax also, because that's the same stuff. That's all put out by Democrats.
Yeah.
And, some of the naive Republicans fall right into line like they always do. They just don't have the sustainability. They don't have they don't have that stick to it like glue.
No, they definitely set the Republicans up.
In the case of Epstein, they've already looked at it, and they are looking at it. And I think all they have to do is put out anything credible. But, that was run by the Biden administration for 4 years. I can imagine what they put into files, just like they did with the others. I mean, the Steele dossier was a total fake.
Right.
It took 2 years to figure that out for the people. And all of the things that you mentioned were fake. Yeah. So I would imagine if they were run by Chris Wray and they were run by Comey, and because it was actually even before that administration, they've been running these files. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me.
Huh. First of all, very funny for him to claim that Republicans don't absolutely fall in line like these servile little worms they are. Also, note how he says fake with me, because he's absolutely in the Epstein files. But now he's just rolling it all into this new fantasy while the news anchor nods along. Yeah, the Democrats really set Republicans up. It's all part of that big hoax that existed long before his first term, apparently. Just decades of this Epstein hoax that he didn't do anything about when he was president, in these files that are selectively true and fake depending on who is named in them. It's like the MCU. We're in phase 5 or 6 or whatever, doing the multiverse meta plot stuff. Just lies upon lies folding over each other, contradicting each other, while his underlings desperately try to weave it all together to make sense. Rewrite history, or more fitting, it's like a mystery box show. There's this constant promise Trump has been making that there's some higher and darker power at work. But at a certain point, that power has to be exposed. At some point, the box needs to be opened. And it gets harder and harder for him to claim that there's this shadow government the longer he's in power. And not just for him. Here's Tulsi Gabbard giving a speech at some Turning Point USA nonsense, bragging about how she's fighting against the deep state.
I can attest personally that in my work as the Director of National Intelligence, the deep state is fighting us every step of the way.
Hey, Tulsi, what the f*** are you talking about? As you literally say in that sentence, you are the Director of National Intelligence. Who is this deep state you're fighting? Name them. What are they doing exactly to you? You can't keep blaming the elites and shadow government when you are literally in charge of the CIA. The Republicans have complete control of our government. How many times can Trump blame some mysterious higher power before people realize that there isn't one? They keep talking about fraud and hoaxes and crimes by Democrats, and yet, where are the convictions? You have your own secret police now. Surely, if there is a big conspiracy of Satanist Democrats, you could expose them. But you haven't, because there isn't any. They're trying to distract people by talking about how Barack Hussein Obama invented the Russia hoax. They're trying to focus on complaining about the names of sports teams. They're trying to arrest Adam Schiff for the thing Trump cares so much about: alleged mortgage fraud. They're trying to say that we're gonna arrest Obama for treason any day now. Any day now. Instead of this other stuff. And honestly, they probably will still get away with this. Again, we all really want to think about this as a house of cards that will eventually topple. But I'm not so sure. Considering all the lazy lies he's gotten away with already, it's hard to think that anything will do it. Because if Trump's rise has taught us anything, it's that America is a country of conspiracy theorists. We love them. The internet, no doubt, made our love even stronger, but we've always been into it. UFOs, moon landing, JFK, X-Files stuff. This fundamental belief that there's some larger and more complex system behind the world around us. It really speaks to people. It makes our lives feel less chaotic. I don't mean to sound all Ricky Gervais, but I imagine it's similar to religion for people. And Trump has directly tapped into the most ravenous conspiracy freaks of them all, and in fact, his political success depends on them.
Well, let's talk about 2024, Harris versus Trump margin, right? QAnon believers. Look at this margin that Donald Trump built up among QAnon believers. He won them by 61 points, or it was at least leading amongst them by 61 points back during the 2024 campaign. Look at those who reject or doubt QAnon. Harris was actually leading amongst them by 16 points during the 2024 campaign. Donald Trump would not have won the presidency in 2024 if it were not for the backing of QAnon believers. That is a bottom line. That is a true statement. That is in the polling data.
See, here's the thing about conspiracy people. They don't really care about policy. They don't care about tariffs or immigration or healthcare. When you think lizard people exist, the nuance of the economy doesn't really thrill you. If you were to ask the most hardcore Dale Gribble type why they would vote for Trump, they're just going to say that it's because he'll expose the deep state. And sure, it's a spectrum. Not everyone is a hardcore conspiracy weirdo, and I bet there are people who are concerned about the deep state and policy. But for so many MAGA supporters, it appears to be extremely important to their identity that there is, in fact, a secret cabal of pedophile Democrats, and only Democrats, mind you. Because if there isn't, then why are they doing everything they're doing? How can you justify cutting off your loved ones, going all in on this one man, all the sacrifices you have to make to support Trump? Even in terms of policy, how do you justify cuts to Medicaid and FEMA and all the ways the country is getting worse if you can't say, well, at least he's going after the deep state? For a right-wing conspiracy theorist, there's just too much riding on this. If Trump were to produce a grand list of Democrat pedophiles, if they all got hauled off to jail, then everything would have been worth it. Otherwise, they have spent a decade being continuously laughed at for nothing. All of the failures from the Trump administration would have been for nothing. They would have to contend with the idea that they were, in fact, tricked by a con man, while everyone around them told them they were being tricked by a con man. It is so important to them that this is true, that Democrats, and again, only Democrats, are secret Satan-loving pedophiles who have been running a campaign of hoaxes against Donald Trump, the brave hero single-handedly fighting back. That's the only way you can justify something like storming the Capitol, right? I'm sorry to do this, but our head writer says, you. So there's an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine where the disgraced fascist Cardassian military leader Gul Dukat, although Gul is a rank, so I don't know if it applies in the episode, but anyway, where Dukat starts a Pa-Wraith cult with a group of Bajoran followers. Bajorans are the species that the Cardassians have been oppressing or something like that, and the Pa-Wraiths are like their version of demons. So it's basically like a Hitler type starting a devil-worshipping cult. And Kira, she's one of the main characters who gets captured by the cult, keeps pointing out that Dukat is just so obviously grifting them, to the point that one of the followers is clearly pregnant with Gul Dukat's baby. And when he's about to be found out, he pulls a Jonestown that Kira thwarts. But even after Dukat is exposed, one of the followers still goes along with the suicide pact. He doesn't care that Dukat is a grifter. He's far too invested at that point. The message is sort of about how strong faith can be, which is why grifters are able to take advantage of it. Also, spoilers for that episode of a show from decades ago that is, well, just way too relevant.
By the early 2020s, there was a place like this in every major city in the United States.
Why are these people in here? Are they criminals?
You know, people with criminal records weren't allowed in the sanctuary districts.
Then what do they do to deserve this?
Nothing. Just people. Without jobs or places to live.
I mean, I'd argue that perhaps the show wasn't prophetic so much as it was tapping into political and social problems of the 90s that we've yet to solve. But anyway, Trump. You get my point about Trump. No matter how guilty he clearly is, there are going to be people who simply won't accept it. And a lot of that has to do with the fundamental nature of conspiracy theorists and how it ties to faith. We're going to do a break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about that a little bit. What is it about the conspiracy crowd that makes them so susceptible to Trump? Should be fun. I'll probably talk about the X-Files a bunch since we've already gotten on a 90s TV kick, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You know, when I started Cast, my podcast about alternate fantasy casts of classic films, it felt like I had to do everything on my own. Setting up the mics, Googling the actors, calling up the actors and asking if they'd wear that white Marilyn Monroe dress, just so I could get a feel on how they would play the role. It was exhausting, I tell ya. But all of that is behind me now with Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in these United States. They set me up with my own design studio so I can sell Cast merch, like the Cast. Perfect for collecting autographs from Kim Basinger and or Matthew Modine while injured. Wouldn't it have been interesting if those two had starred in Pulp Fiction? Yeah. Anyway, Shopify helps you create effective social media campaigns, and they also manage shipping and returns. So turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/more news. Go to shopify.com/more news. In the next episode of the Cast, we're musing on what it would have been like to cast Ralph Fiennes in Liar Liar. Woo! Wild, right? We're kooky. Okay, one more time. Shopify.com/more news. Hit that ring-a-ding-ding again, Sam. Yes.
Hey, you watch this show, so you must agree that the news, in addition to being an overall drag, is also very distracting. I do a news show, and even I get distracted by more news. Fortunately, I use Ground News, a website and app we reached out to, which you can access via the QR code on the screen. I've been working with Ground News for a long time, and that's for a reason. I think they're one of the most powerful solutions for breaking down the news and making the constant distractions a little less distracting. For example, the president of these United States is threatening to block a deal for the Washington Commanders to build a new stadium on the site of an old stadium named after his Health and Human Services Secretary's father. Unless the team changes its name back to a racial slur. With ground news, I can see what sources from different sides of the political spectrum are saying about it, including who is using the offensive term itself in their articles. I can also see that headline amidst all the other top headlines of the day, so I can decide for myself what is news and what is definitely a distraction. A distraction from what? I mean, who's to say? It's truly an enigma. So I highly recommend adding ground news to your client list at ground.news/SMN. With that link, you'll get 40% off unlimited access, which gets you all the top headlines, plus extra features like a factuality chart and analysis of the news bias of each source. That's ground.news/SMN for 40% off. The link is in the description. The distraction is just the beginning.
Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Have you guessed it yet? Have you guessed? Oh, you must not have been paying attention because it is the summer of cinema, ya bozos, and Pluto TV is combusting with thousands of free movies. So what are you spending your time watching? Vines? No. Feature-length films is where the vibe is at these days, my friends. Explosive action movies like Gladiator, Stealth, Star Trek. My, oh my, there's gum in my eye. The Linear Rotunda, Gladiator, The Printer That Works, and other tall tales. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Beverly Hills Cop, The Anthropomorphized AirPods, The Garage Sale Murders, A Trip to San Antone with Joey Fatone, Four Brothers, Good Burgers, and Squanch. Bring the action with you and stream for free on all your favorite devices. Pluto TV, stream now, pay never. Do you think I need to watch Skunk before checking out Squanch 2? I meant Squanch. Do you need... That's a yes. I need to watch Squanch before I can watch Squanch 2. It's gonna be a whole night of squanching, folks.
All right, final break is over, much like Trump. Canceled! All right, so Trump is the guiltiest man in the world. I think it's safe to say that, and it's pretty amazing that he backed himself into this hilarious corner. I mean, he's very stupid. He's always been very stupid. Guy doesn't even know the word enigma, some say. So it's not surprising that he would inadvertently link his campaign to the releasing of Epstein's client list despite likely being on that list himself. I honestly think Trump thought that people would forget once he got elected. Or maybe he knew it wouldn't matter at that point. Or perhaps his followers have just been so constantly willing to believe even the flimsiest of lies, Trump knew that he could find a way to squirm out of it. Or, as prophecy foretells, wriggle out of it. Because his followers want a reason to forgive him on this. So here's a question. Why are MAGA people so incredibly gullible? That is the word for them. I'm sorry, like, if you are or were a MAGA person, this is going to be tough to hear. Nobody wants to be conned by an obvious con man. But if it's becoming clear to you that in regards to this Epstein stuff, Trump is obviously the guiltiest man ever, and he's been lying to you about that, I urge you to hold on to that realization and consider that he could be lying to you about many other things. Consider that perhaps Trump wasn't only a monstrous predator who used his money and power to hurt innocent and vulnerable people while lying and laughing about it only in regards to this. I mean, maybe, but probably not. And realizing that is hard. It's also hard not to just scream, "Yeah, obviously, you fucking rube," at these people. But my philosophy is always better late than never. Unfortunately, we've sort of hit a point where it's going to be embarrassing for people to turn away from Trump. It's going to take those people recognizing something they should have realized way sooner. And perhaps they need to feel a little bit of humility and be willing to listen to the people who had been calling the obvious lying monster Trump an obvious lying monster for years. Because for most people, it's very obvious. It always was. And so again, why are MAGA people so gullible? Well, I think it has something to do with the fact that conspiracy theorists in general are, ironically, some of the most gullible and naive people in the world. Sorry, it's true. I will expand on that. I'm absolutely not saying that conspiracies don't exist. There are real conspiracies out there. It's just that conspiracy theorists don't seem interested in those. In fact, while conspiracy theorists love to act like they're revealing a dark truth, the stuff they tend to believe is far more optimistic than the reality. For example, and most recently, some right-wingers are now talking about secret weather machines causing the increase in storms. That is a far more naive theory compared to what actually happened, which was years of oil and gas companies campaigning to cover up evidence of the damage they were doing to our planet. That's a way darker conspiracy than a stupid weather machine. It's believing the moon landing was faked versus believing the moon landing was real, thanks to Nazi scientists that we recruited after the war. In these cases, the popular conspiracy is actually being used to cover up a real conspiracy. It's very easy to do because most conspiracy theorists are subconsciously seeking the theories they personally find interesting or compelling, or the ones that align with their politics. It's boring and depressing to think about the realities of climate change and the people who covered it up. But it's fun and rewarding to believe that Joe Biden is conjuring angry clouds. There's a very important television event called The X-Files that deals with this on a large scale and spans decades into the Trump era. Back in season 5, there's a brief arc where Agent Mulder realizes that alien abduction conspiracies are likely being promoted by our government as a way to cover up actual conspiracies.
It's strongly held by believers in UFO phenomena that there is military complicity or involvement in abductions. But what if there is no complicity? What if there is simply just the military seeking to develop an arsenal of weapons against which there is no defense? Biological warfare.
That's from the episode Patient X, which begins the Jeffrey Spender story arc. Spender's Mulder's half-brother. Spoilers, sorry. That clip feels relevant now, though. Trump supporters will talk about the deep state and JFK assassination plots while ignoring the conspiracy happening in real time in front of them. Anyway, back to the X-Files, the thing this video is now about. The show first ended in 2002 after Mulder was briefly abducted, returned, and then had to escape a military prison after being put on trial for the murder of a man who was actually a super soldier that could regenerate. Doesn't matter. My point is that the X-Files would come back for 2 more seasons in 2016, a revival series right when Trump would rise to power. Now, this show was the show for conspiracy theories. There's literally a running story where the government is hiding alien DNA in our vaccines. There was a time when this stuff used to be fun and games, until it wasn't. And the X-Files, to their credit, realized that. They introduced an Alex Jones character in these seasons and pointed out how Mulder's conspiracy circle was now overrun by toxicity. Here's an episode from 2018 where Mulder meets a tongue-in-cheek version of a shadow government mastermind who tells him to his face that he is no longer relevant.
Okay, so what is or what was my time?
Well, it's a time when people of power thought that they could keep their secrets secret and were willing to do anything to keep it that way. Those days are past, gone. We're now living in a post-cover-up, post-conspiracy age.
Again, it's tongue-in-cheek. It's a Darren Morgan episode. He wrote all the funny ones like Jose Chung and Clyde Bruckman. Humbug was his. Fun fact, he actually played the Fluke Man and Eddie Van Blunt in the Small Potatoes episode with the shapeshifter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that this is the X-Files, the conspiracy theory show, flat out recognizing that they are no longer relevant in the Trump era. And that's because people like Trump simply don't care if their darkest secrets are exposed because they can just say it's fake. If a P-tape came out tomorrow, Trump would just say it's fake. It's AI, it's a Democrat hoax, and that would be that. After all, he was, from day one, the most obvious liar and scammer ever. He was so clearly the pedophile elite that he claimed to be fighting against. But because so many conspiracy theorists are naive and gullible, he was able to harness and manipulate their fury to make them blind to how clearly bad he was. He took control of the angry mob that, in any other scenario, would have come right for him. It's the hot dog meme. If everyone believed the man dressed as the hot dog. It's the criminal becoming the cop and being told that they have to root out the secret criminal. I feel like I don't need that many more metaphors here, so much as I need to stress how easy that was in the right-wing conspiracy circle. People who, like Mulder seeking aliens, were singular-minded from the start, willing to accept anything that justified what they already believe. After all, they want to believe. They want a reason to hate the Democrats, to jail them, to eradicate them. They need a reason, and they aren't going to give that reason up easily. For many of them, their entire reality hinges on it. The world's largest coping mechanism. This little voice inside of them, egging it on, like a magic tattoo telling you to kill your downstairs neighbor. Season 4, Episode 13, Never Again.
As long as I'm with you, no one will ever hurt you. Never again.
That's Jodie Foster as the voice of the tattoo. Imagine that. Jodie Foster inspiring someone to kill? Okay. So, a final thing I need to point out about all of this. These MAGA conspiracy Pizzagate people constantly talking about Democrat pedophiles, they don't actually care about stopping pedophilia, right? If they did, they would probably be concerned that the GOP keeps opposing child marriage bans, or how the State Department just downsized the Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons. I mean, shit, Matt Gaetz was heavily implicated in an underage sex trafficking case, and we got nothing from the conspiracy crowd except demanding that he be the special counsel in getting to the bottom of this Epstein list stuff. That's how controllable and gullible they are. That's how obviously partisan this is. They will walk by 1 million actual pedophiles to accuse a Democrat, because somehow they've been totally convinced that only Democrats are the elites, or rather, they know deep inside that isn't true, but they just don't care. They really super don't seem to care about any of it. And we haven't talked about this much, but it's extremely important to point out that there are actual victims here. Young women and girls who had their lives destroyed, who were trafficked and raped by powerful people, probably a couple of presidents, who will likely never see justice. It's the one thing everyone can agree on. Jeffrey Epstein had victims. Victims that have been and are speaking up and should be listened to. These people have to watch as their attackers thrive and walk free, take advantage of this post-conspiracy, post-truth world, hide themselves in the spectacle and political debates, because for most people, including people on the left, this is all being turned into this big political game, something to wield against the other side, people capitalizing on this, boosting their true crime shows, digging into the intrigue of it all, going wild with the conspiracy theories, treating it like a movie. But it's not any of those things. It's real, and it's sad, and there are victims and perpetrators. And if we really want to see justice, we have to go beyond political party lines. We have to actually want the people who did this to be exposed and convicted. Not for it to help Democrats or Republicans, but just because. For the truth of it. The truth is... it's somewhere. Truth good. Truth is, it's over yonder. The truth is out there. Yeah, as in like it's like gone. Like truth is way out there. We're never getting that back. Hey, thanks for watching. End of f***ed up, depressing episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. Do all the YouTube stuff. We got a podcast called Even More News. You can listen to it on this channel and watch it 2 times a week, or the podcast place is available to get it there too. Twice a week. You can listen to this show as a podcast called Some More News. It's in your ears, it's in your eyes, it's in your heart, it's in your mind. Those are all the places that it is. We've got a patreon.com/some more news. We've got a merch store with merch. In the end.